Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at and installing the PMAS cold air intake for 2011 to 2014 GT Mustangs. This is the tune-required PMAS intake and it's all about more airflow. It has 120mm mass airflow and a velocity stack. It costs about $300 and it's easy to install. I'll call it a 1 out of 3 wrenches in the difficulty meter. Now because this is the tune-required intake, we did install this intake and pair it with a tune and ran it on the dyno. So let's talk about horsepower numbers and show you the install. Our baseline run with our 2011 GT gave us numbers of 358 horsepower and 337 foot-pounds of torque. After we installed the intake and paired it with a tune, we saw numbers of 371 horsepower and 350 foot-pounds of torque. That makes for a peak gain of 13 horsepower and 13 foot-pounds of torque. We saw curve gains too. We noticed 17 horsepower at 5,400 RPM and 16 foot-pounds of torque at 5,000 RPM. All right guys, in order to install our intake, you've obviously first got to get your stock intake out of the way, and that's really pretty simple. You're looking at a couple bolts, loosen a couple clamps, remove some lines, and get your mass airflow sensor out, and I'll show you how to do that now. All right, so first things first, we have a 10mm bolt here that's holding our airbox in place. I'm just gonna back that out. Next, we're gonna pull out our mass air sensor because we are gonna transfer this over to a new intake. I'm gonna unclip it and we actually need to unbolt it out of here. So there's a little red tab on the bottom. Pull your red tab out, disconnect your sensor, and we're gonna back this out too. Next, we're gonna be removing these 3 lines right here, including our sound tube. So we're just gonna pull them off. Use a pair of pliers to get this clamp right here. Next, I'm going to loosen the clamp right here at the throttle body, and what I'm going to try to do personally is I'm going to try to remove all of this as one big piece. If I have to, I'll come back in and loosen this clamp too, but for now, I'm just going to loosen this clamp, remove it at the throttle body, and see if I can pull the intake out that way. Okay guys, now that we have the stock intake uninstalled, the first thing that I'm going to do with the PMAS is I'm actually going to install the heat shield, and that's because I have a feeling the PMAS intake tube is going to be too large to install this after, so it's going to be the first thing I put in the car. All right, so I'm gonna pull out the second piece of this factory airbox here to make room for the PMAS shroud. All right, next we're ready for our shroud. PMAS gave us 2 body clips to clip this into place. So this is gonna sit down in here. I'm gonna line 2 holes up, and this does flex and bend a little bit, so you guys gotta work with it. So hold down here in the frame rail. I'm gonna take one of these push pins and push it into. And the second one is going to be up here. The next thing that we're gonna do is actually relocate our coolant reservoir tank. PMAS gives us a new bracket for it. We're gonna be moving it over to the right because the intake tube is actually so large that it won't fit with the coolant reservoir tank in the stock location. So all we're gonna do here, we're not disconnecting any coolant lines, we're just disconnecting our coolant tank from the rad. We're also gonna keep our stock hardware because we will need it for our new bracket. I'm gonna set the tank here where it's not gonna move. Okay guys, you want to make sure that you have the bracket in the correct orientation. It's going to sit like this and move your reservoir over to the left. So let's sit this down here. We're going to use our stock hardware to bolt the bracket back into place. Then we are going to shift the reservoir over to the left. And you do have to muscle it a little bit, but it'll go into place. I'm going to drop my hardware in. Now the hardest part about this will be getting the nut on the opposite end. Thread the nut onto the bottom here. I'll come back and tighten that in a second. We can get this side on next. There we go. All right, so on the table here we have the PMAS intake right next to your stock intake, and right away you can see that the PMAS is a little bit different looking than your stock intake. It's all about getting more airflow and as much airflow as possible. So what we have here is a very large intake tube that then runs down to your velocity stack, which then runs into your reusable cone style filter. So going back to the intake tube here for a second, this is one of the largest, if not the largest intake tube that's on the market. You guys can see how large this is, and if you hold it up next to your stock intake tube, it's much bigger. Then we'll go down to our velocity stack here, which is also your mass airflow housing, and that is 120mm, and you have no MAF resolution loss there. Lastly, you have your heat shield, and this is all about just keeping hot engine compartment air away from your air filter. One other thing that I will say is that this is the tune required PMAS. PMAS does offer a no tune required intake if you guys aren't ready for a tune yet. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and get this intake on the car. Now this thing comes pretty much ready to go for you. You already have your couplers on, all of your fittings are in, and PMAS does give you the option of keeping your stock sound tube or deleting it. You can see this cap right here is a cap to delete the sound tube. Our Mustang here today does have the sound tube deleted on it. PMAS also gives you this plug for the firewall so that you can plug up the hole from removing the sound tube, but we're just gonna go ahead and leave this plug on the intake because our sound tube is deleted, and we're gonna leave it that way. With that being said, I'm gonna move ahead to install the stock mass airflow sensor that we removed from the stock intake. So PMAS does give you hardware for this too. Now for the PMAS, I'm actually gonna mostly install this here on the table. I think it might help me once I get this to the engine bay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna slide my 2 clamps onto the massive coupler that we have. I'm gonna loosely slide this on to our inlet tube. I'm gonna leave all the clamps and everything loose for now, just to give me some wiggle room. I'm just loosely installing things on. So then that way, once I get it in the engine bay, I can change the orientation of this and I can get it set up the way I really want it to be. We're gonna start by sliding the coupler onto the throttle body first. This is a really tight fit, so expect to wrestle with it for a little while. All right guys, so I'm actually gonna backtrack and take this portion of the intake off because I don't really think that it's helping me right now. So I'm just gonna take this off, set it aside. We have an aftermarket throttle body on this car, so it makes the fit with the coupler a little bit tighter. There we go. Actually gave me the leverage that I needed to get this in place. I'm gonna loosen this clamp up so I can get this to fit on here a little bit better. You actually wanna make sure that this is sitting as flush on the throttle body as possible. You wanna make sure that your clamp is down far too, so that you don't run the risk of having this pop off. So I'm gonna leave it loose for now, because you can see I might need some wiggle room with the PMAS. So we don't have our sound tube to connect because we deleted it from this car, but we are gonna connect these two. Okay. All right, so now we can get our air filter portion back on. So you guys can see I have the coupler sitting right next to the mass airflow sensor, but it's not overlapping it. Get my clamp straight and I'll tighten that down. I have to make these clamps all the way loose so they even fit over the intake tube. All right, and then lastly, I'm gonna tighten the clamp up at the throttle body. We have one more thing that we have to do then, and that's connect our mass airflow sensor. Clips back into place, and then make sure you push that red tab back in so that this locks into place. All right guys, so that's gonna wrap up this review and install. Keep in mind that you can always check out the PMAS intake more online right here at AmericanMuscle.com.